I'm Krista, I'm an addict.
I'm Gracie and I'm not, and welcome back to another episode.
So today we're going to talk about forgiveness and how that plays a huge role in, I think, like a healthy recovery, and not just like from drugs and alcohol, but just like in life in general. Letting go of resentments, like getting forgiveness from the people that I've harmed, like it all kind of goes hand in hand. So I've shared about how I've had like some links of sobriety in the past. Like I have like a couple different times where I've had substantial amount of recovery or not using drugs and alcohol. So the second round that I had, like I was so full of anger and like resentment. And I didn't know at the time, but ultimately I feel like that is what led me to relapse in the past, was that I was playing, almost like I was playing victim, this time around, like I have come to the realization that I'm not always going to get like I have to forgive people and just leave it alone. Like I'm not always going to get the apology that I think that I deserve. But then like I have to like humble myself a little bit, because like there's been times that my family and friends have said like, just keep living right, like that's enough in itself. If you feel like that you need to say it out loud to be able to be, healthier, by all means we can sit down and talk. But they have told me over and over again that like they knew that the things that I had done when I was getting high was not me, that was my addiction. So I mean, there are things that I have had to like tell them vocally so that it could like lose its power. But some things it's just an understanding. So when I said like I have to humble myself, like as far like I have to also like the people that I feel like have hurt me, like I have to let that be some of the reason. Like they were under the influence when some of that happened, or whatever. They weren't like the most healthy version of themselves. So I forgave them and moved on. Like I don't let those things hold power over me. So that was the difference in like my I think like even like the maturity of my recovery then versus now. Like I just realized now this time around that I'm only responsible for myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can't let other people have any type of power over me. I can only fix myself. And I've said that over and over and over again, because that's such an integral part of like having a long-term sobriety. I think for me it has been like just being able to be very self-aware and forgiving people that I'll never get an apology from them.
So also, what about like when you're trying to make amends with people? It goes so much deeper. So like, what about there's people that probably don't want you to make amends with them? Like there's people you probably try to reach out to that you feel you need to make amends with, but they're not receptive, or they've either moved on, they've dealt with it, or they just don't want any part of an apology.
So I've worked with people that have more recovery than me on this type of thing, because what I've learned is there's people that you just can't make amends with. Like some of the things that I've done like legally, if I were to make amends, like there's that potential that I would catch a whole new charge. So that's just not like I can't do it. So I have worked through some of that stuff like in a different way. There's some people that don't want to hear what I have to say. Like they don't care. They're not going to be forgiving, and that's their prerogative, like to not. Again, I have to like go ahead and like work those amends like in a different way. Because there's some people that are just not going to be understanding and of your addiction. Like I'm going to be a villain in their story, and that is okay, because some of the things that I did in addiction are very villain-like, so I just, acceptance is a huge part. And then, there's people that I've harmed in the past that have since passed on, and there's like a way that I've been able to work through some of those amends. So there's like another, like obviously I've done some like shady stuff, like in not so great choices, that things that I carry like a lot of guilt and shame over, that I really do wish I could go to like a person and just spill my guts to them and tell them everything that happened. However, like, again, I've talked with someone who has more experience or knowledge about it. Like, it would harm them more than it would help. So, like, if the universe ever aligns that stuff to where, like, that becomes a conversation that I'm able to have to practice, like, forgiveness on both ends, then I know that I'll feel that it's right. But, like, at this time in my life, like, if I were to go try to make an amends that really, something that really bothers me still, like, it would harm too many people involved. Mm-hmm. And that's just, like, a relationship thing. Like, like, you learn about the different types of harms, and this was one that is just going to affect other people's lives, so...
I'd say I've seen, like, forgiveness on the family's end in, like, multiple different ways because, so, like, for example, when I was growing up and I was really young, I obviously didn't have, there was things I wasn't aware of, but also, like, my parents forgiving you, like, I've seen that aspect of it and how long it took them to forgive you for things, and that was hard on me growing up because there were times that I was restricted from seeing you, even when you were sober, because of, like, other people's forgiveness with you and how long it takes. And I mean, I'm sure they'd be okay with me saying this. I think it took them years to forgive you.
Yeah, and I think there was other things that were going on there, too. Like, you know, your parents went through a divorce, and, like, that was, like, the prime of my addiction, too, going through that, like, shortly after that. So there were just, like, a lot of family things going on, like, one thing after another, that it did take time. There was, I mean, you were caught in the middle of all of that, you know what I mean? And, yeah, you know, it's crazy. Like, I used to pray for, like, things to work out. Like, our parents didn't speak for a while because of my addiction. And me. I was the root cause of all of it. Like, everybody wanted to blame everybody for the reason of I was getting high. That was the problem. Yeah. End of story. Like, so, I don't know. Maybe, I think your mom... And I can't speak for her, but I think she finally saw how much, like, pain I was really in. And, like, and really just honestly, my kids starting school.
I mean, obviously I'm 20 years old, and I would say it's taken 10 years for our family and everybody to forgive each other. And now we all, you know what I mean?
Everybody gets along. Yeah. Like, I feel like my addiction, like, tore our families apart, but then in the same sense at the very end, it, like, has brought everybody back together, which is just...
It's so full circle. It's insane. Right. Like, it's crazy. I remember my mom saying, though, like, even when I was younger and stuff, I remember people asking her, and, like, even in front of me, like, how do you forgive Krista? And my mom always said that she would forgive you because you admitted what you did, which was a huge, huge thing for her. Like, when you were honest with her and told her what you did, she knew she could forgive you, which kind of goes back to, like, your actions, and everybody forgives in a different way, too. Like, I kind of agree with the side of, like, just show me your actions, and, you know, actions speak louder than words, but if there is something you need to talk about it, but it's just everybody goes through it in different ways, too.
Yeah. And again, like, looking back, like, I think early on, no one really was educated about addiction back then. And everybody just wanted to blame each other. That's, like, another part of, like, the family side of it. Like, no one wanted to believe that they're, like, it's your fault she's like this. And I think that that's just, like, part of acceptance. And I don't even know. Like, I've just seen a lot of other families go through similar stuff with, like, just not wanting to...
And everybody in the family's, like, you know, we talk about, like, you go through the stages, whatever. Like, everybody's at different, like, points of it. Like, some people are still in denial about it. Some people have accepted it. Some people are angry, you know. So that makes it so much harder, too, for everybody, like, family members to get along. And
I think this last rip, I think that it was just, I couldn't hide it anymore. Like, that's the thing, like, for different times that, like, I was able to hide it from, like, them, or I was able to hide it from them. Like, I was just so transparent with everything and exhausted. Like, I was just like, I'm so messed up. Like,
and I think we were, too. Like, we were all at the same, I mean, I would say so, don't you think? Like, everybody, we were all in the same mental state, like, of the exhausted, and there was no denial of anything anymore.
No, my addiction exhausted everyone.
Yeah, and I think so we came together and tried to be there for you
I
the best
couldn't
we
even
could.
lie anymore. Like, I'm just like, dude, this is what it is. I'm strung out. Like, I'm going crazy. Like,
And we've talked about that, and I remember that being, like, so freeing to feel like I wasn't crazy, to know that you actually, like, the honesty was, like, everything to me, even when I, like, sat there and faced you and knew you were high at the time. Like, it was so freeing.
but I don't know if we've talked about it on here, but I remember, like, I was getting ready to go to this. I'd reached out to some friends. I was going to go to this short-term treatment. They worked there. I was going to go, and your mom took me to the Dollar General to get, like, some hygiene, because, like, at the time I wasn't speaking to my parents or anything. And I was so high. I had just done drugs. I was so high. I couldn't even deny it. Your mom was like, had to be like, get out of the car, because I was just like, and we go in the store, and she, like, literally had to guide me like a child. I remember just feeling like my inside was so embarrassed, but I was so high I couldn't even function. You know what I mean? And she's like, Krista, you need toothpaste or blah blah blah. And I finally look at her. I'm just like, I'm so high. I'm sorry. Like, I'm so high. Like. And she just
Stuck.
like, okay, let's.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was literally getting stuff to go to rehab. So, but
Yeah.
I would have never done that in the past. And I talked to my grandma about this. Like, I go to my grandma's house every Wednesday and get her some gas, and we just, talk about everything. And so I was telling her, like, how at the very end of, like, that, this is how I know, like, my higher power is, like, working on me, because in the past 10 years or whatever, like, when I would be strung out or whatever, and I would be stealing or doing, like, criminal things, or, I think that also helped this time around, because I, like, wasn't doing that kind of, I wasn't stealing from everybody. Like, I just feel like God was, like, really working on me. Like, I couldn't steal, couldn't lie. Like literally, I could feel, like, that God conscious, even though I was getting high, like, it was working on me, like, big time. Like, I was, like, felt this, like, epiphany to, like, tell the truth about everything, and, like, I could not lie. So when people would, like, ask me stuff, like, there was even things about, like, in my relationship at the time, like, about, like, not being faithful. Like, I couldn't lie about anything.
Yeah.
And, like, no one could really get mad at me, because I was
We're almost trying to make amends before.
And it wasn't even, like, consciously, like, I wasn't thinking, like, I'm making amends. It's just, like,
it was just, you felt like you needed to
be transparent.
Yes.
Like, this is what it is for me to be able to move on. Like, here it is. If you want to be a part of my life, cool. If not, peace. Like,
I feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong if you remember this, but I remember one time you were going to, it might be that same place my mom took you to, but I remember you calling me and telling me, like, how you felt like you needed to tell everybody these things, and you had, like, these, like, huge, like, urges to drive and, like, be transparent about everything to certain people.
yeah, like, I just feel like, I'm real spiritual, and I just felt like the universe kept lining stuff up for me to have, like, these conversations that it was, like, stuff that you guys have been holding on to, wanting to know the truth about stuff, and it was, like, the conversations started. Mm-hmm. So I just, I didn't, like, force those things on family and friends and stuff, but when the opportunity presented itself, like, I told the truth. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't just, like, come right out, because, I mean, obviously I was high, but, like, if you guys asked me something, like, I just, this is what it is. Yeah. And I just didn't have any guilt over it, and I know that might come off as selfish, but, like, I was just at the point where I was exhausted for living this two different lives. Mm-hmm. Like, the mask, it came off. Like, this is what it is. Take it or leave it. Like,
I think you were ready for change and to get help too. So, like, being honest, you knew by doing those things that it would hopefully help lead you in that direction. Or I don't even know if that was necessarily your intention, though, to, like, maybe make us, like, us be able to try to help you, like, get to sobriety.
I was so desperate for, like, not living like that. I was miserable. I was lonely. Like, I knew you guys loved me, but I just kept trying to, like, act like I was fine, and I just got tired of acting. So, like, I think that's, like, a pride thing. Like, I didn't want y'all to, like, think everybody knew what was going on, but, I kept holding on to, like, pride was keeping me sick, like, I still got it together, like, I'm not, but then, like, I just got to the point where I was just tired, like, I was just exhausted of trying to, like, pretend. Yeah. Like, everybody knew it. I was physically looking the way that I felt, and when, like, my mom would be like, you just look terrible. like, I wasn't even sad about it. I was like, thank God. Like, finally, y'all can look at me and see how I feel. Yeah. Like, I mean, I look terrible. I mean, I don't look too much better today. Yeah.
Like, I think, too, though, like, when you started admitting stuff, we could admit stuff, too. Whereas before, we saw those things, but it was never going to be like, you know, you look terrible. But, like, whenever you admitted those things, it's like, because that's one of those things, too, of, like, the denial in your head, you know, like, until it is, like, admitted and on the table, there's still a part of you in your head that doesn't believe it, you know, and that's, like, going back for a second, like, that was huge, and, like, I think that's, like, helped me forgive you so quickly was the honesty, too, because for me, I didn't necessarily need you to sit down and be like, I'm sorry. And I even remember being, like, younger, and, like, once you would be sober, and, like, I would see you for the first time after rehab or something, like, you admitting things, like, just, like, you know, you went to jail or whatever, and, like, that has always been really healing for me, is just the honesty.
Yeah, and that, like, that's what we're taught in, you know, the programs, like, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, like, those are, like, spiritual principles, so everything's like a spiritual thing. Like, if somebody's trying to get sober and you're not willing to be honest, then it's not going to work out well. Right. Like, eventually you're going to get high again because you're holding on to stuff. So, and that's just, it is what it is. Like, so to wrap everything up, like, in our personal journey and experiences, honesty has played a huge part in, like, being able to forgive people, like, communication, and just fully forgiving someone. Like, that helps. Like, people that have hurt me, I just have forgiven them. And full forgiveness. Like, it never happened.
Well, that goes kind of on the family's end, too. Like, I think we've talked about this, too. Like, you have to fully forgive them and, like, deal with your anger or whatever, because you can't, I mean, that's just life, too. Like, you can't bring it up 2 years down the road, and you know what I mean? Like, you have to deal with those things and forgive and fully forgive. Or you're never going to live a peaceful, happy life or have, like, a peaceful relationship either.
Yeah, because when I have learned that when I didn't forgive people, I was so, like I said earlier, I was so full of, like, anger and resentment, and that stuff controlled me. And like, those things had power over me. I ended up getting high over it. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what ultimately led me to getting high, which is all that anger and resentment. Since I have, like, worked on forgiving people and things, and, like, I'm not angry at all. I'm not resentful. I don't take things personal. That keeps me sober.
But thank you guys for watching.
Keep coming back.
Keep coming back.